Take your seats. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to all those who have joined us online. So, friends, today first we will take a look at the environmental actions that have been taken as far as India is concerned. It means climate change and its impact on economy. Now, look here very carefully. What do you understand by the term climate change? How do you define climate change? How to define climate change? Now see, weather changes almost every day. So we are not bothered about changes in weather because weather changes are very frequent. What is climate? Climate is aggregate weather conditions taken over a period of time, normally taken as 30 years. That is what is climate. Now climate is what we expect, but weather is what we get generally, right? So climate changes sluggishly, whereas weather changes very frequently. That's why nobody is bothered about weather change. Like few days back in NCR region, we had showers almost late in the evening, but now you look, the sun is at its best, it's scorching. So the point is the weather changes very frequently. So nobody talks about changes in weather, but everybody is interested in climate change. Now, climate change today, as we talk about it, we generally refer to increase in the average global temperatures. Or because we are living in an ice-free age, that's why our concern is global warming. Whereas if it would have been an ice age, our concern would have been global cooling. Do you understand that? If you look at Earth's geological history, you will find that it's a history that alternates between periods of global warming and global cooling. So we had glaciation and we had deglaciation periods all across spanning the Earth's history. So once the Earth was frozen, then the Earth melted, then the Earth again got refrozen, it remelts, and that's how the cycle goes on. Now we are living in the time period where we are more concerned about global warming. Now, look here. What global warming can do to people? Obviously, we understand that global warming can impact ecosystems and ecological balance to a great extent because many species might find it difficult to cope with the increased temperature. Apart from that, you see, it will also have economic and livelihood ramifications. Like say, for example, just the increase of the average global temperature by 1% can cause 70 to 80% crop failures, especially winter crops. It means in India, you see the rabi crops will start suffering. But yes, global warming may also, it may open up new areas for grazing, pasture and agriculture, which were hitherto under ice. Like say, for example, at higher latitudes or at higher altitudes. But the point is that humanity is now, it is condensed in few pockets of the world, and in those pockets, if there is crop failure, then it would have large-scale ramifications, disastrous ramifications over livelihoods. People who are living in the coastal areas, they would also suffer because you know that as global warmings push the mean sea level up, the raised sea level will cause water to inundate the coastal areas. The water will transgress towards land. And when that happens, people who are living in the coastal regions, their livelihoods, their settlements, everything will get destroyed. Also, there is a coastal economy, you can understand, that would also be disrupted, and that might also impact the supply chains because think of port to hinterland connectivity. So there would be so many problems with climate change. That's why since the Earth Summit, I hope all of you are aware about the Earth Summit, the Rio de Janeiro Summit. Since that time period, there is a renewed interest in arresting the rate of climate change. Now, climate change is something which nobody can stop. It will happen, as I told you, that Earth's history oscillates between periods of glaciation and deglaciation. Nobody can arrest it. But what is the cause of concern is we have accelerated the rate of climate change. And that is what is causing problems. We are not ready enough to adapt to these new realities, especially in terms of global warming. So countries have come together and they have decided to arrest the rate of climate change. It means the percentage change that is happening in climate across, they want to bring that percent down. But here again, the house is divided. On one hand, we have developed nations. On the other hand, we have developing nations. Now, developing nations, they say that their per capita contribution or their accumulative contribution to global warming is very less when you compare to the contributions made by the developed nations. The developed nations or the advanced economies, they are mostly the beneficiaries of the industrial revolution, and for the past 200, 300 years, they have burned fossil fuels indiscriminately. And that's why they have released a lot of greenhouse gases. I hope you understand that. Carbon dioxide, monoxide, methane, etc. All these gases have accumulated in the lower layers of the atmosphere. And you know, greenhouse gas traps outgoing terrestrial radiation and thereby increases the temperature of the lower atmosphere. Now, greenhouse gases, they are necessary for survival because greenhouse gases keeps the lower atmosphere warm enough for life to survive. But if there is more proportion of greenhouse gases than what is needed, then it will push the global temperatures up. And if that is the case, then there would be destruction of agriculture, there would be destruction of livelihood, there would be also destruction and disruptions of the ecological balance. Got it? Many ecological services will also get affected due to increased global temperature. Obviously, I've already told you that what it will happen in the coastal areas, what it will do to the coastal people because of the raised sea levels. It would inundate land in the coastal areas and all the coastal livelihoods, settlements, etc. would be completely in disarray. So the developing countries now have a demand. The developing countries or the emerging markets, they say that because our contribution is so less to global warming, hence our responsibility to arrest the rate of global change, climate change, must also be equally proportionate. In very simple words, they are saying कि हमने बहुत कम कंट्रीब्यूट किया है ग्लोबल वार्मिंग के लिए, इसलिए जो भी अब हमको करना है ग्लोबल वार्मिंग को अरेस्ट करने के लिए, उसकी रिस्पांसिबिलिटी भी हम पे कम होनी चाहिए, which is nothing but common but differentiated responsibilities, right? It also follows the principle of equality, that likes should be treated alike and not everybody should be treated in the same manner. But the developed countries, they now say that no, everybody has to pitch in. If anybody is left out, then we might not be able to achieve the targets that we have in our mind. Like, so for example, the Kyoto Protocol targets, are you aware about it? So such kind of targets will not be able to reach unless everybody pitches in with equal zeal and effort. But developing countries says that that is not fair. Also, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, are you aware about that? It also shows in its assessment report that most of the global warming is due to the fossil fuels that have been burnt by the developed countries and not by the developing countries. Countries like India, China, or Russia, or even South Africa, Brazil, they have contributed very less to the overall global warming. Most of the global warming today that we are facing is because of the industrial activity that has occurred in North America, specifically speaking Canada, USA, and the Western European countries, that too in UK, France, Germany, Portugal, Spain. These are the main culprits, right? And they have to now bear the burden for climate change. Now, in developing countries, why we are so averse to adopting methods that would arrest the rate of climate change? One hand, we have a teeming population to feed. The country is yet not developed. Do you understand that? And therefore, our priorities are cut out. When there are developmental challenges that are staring at our face, we cannot think of renewable energy. Secondly is, we face three kinds of problem. First is technology that is necessary to generate renewable energy. It is not necessary that, it is not sufficient that you have only sources to generate renewable energy. You must also have the technology to generate renewable energy. All this technology is with the Western world, but the Western world is not willing to share that technology with the developing world. So that also creates a north-south divide. Have you heard about that in climate discussions? So anyhow, the developing world, countries like India, China, they're saying that we are going to contribute to the overall management of global climate. But for that, we need the technology. And if we have to develop that technology, it will take us years. And if we harbor on such kind of a path, then what will happen to our developmental schemes? Like, say, for example, say, think about all the MSP being pulled back immediately because it is giving an incentive to grow paddy, which is one of the sources for generation of methane. Paddy fields are generation points of methane. So if you withdraw all the MSP, can you just imagine a situation where government declares that all the MSP on paddy is now abandoned herefrom from this point onwards? It would be chaos in India, right? We cannot do that. So we want first technology. Second problem is funds. we do not have sufficient funds. Yes, there are some mechanisms through which we can get some funds from foreign countries and from international institutions like IMF, etc., World Bank, etc. But you see that IMF, World Bank, they are for specific purposes. IMF is to resolve the BOP crisis of countries, whereas World Bank is a bank for development. Do you understand that? Whereas we do not have a bank which is specifically dedicated to the purpose of climate change. That's why there is a problem. And if these institutions have to pump money into the developing world, they have to be reimbursed by money from the developed world. It's, मतलब आप कान ऐसे पकड़ो या ऐसे पकड़ो, एक ही बात है, देना तो डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड वालों को ही है. For that, developed world has to mobilize the resources in their own country. That mobilization will also include more tax burden on the people in the developed world. Now you tell me very frankly, how many people in United States of America are willing to pay more tax so that people in coastal Andhra can fight climate change? Very few. Do you understand that? Therefore, funds is second major problem apart from technology. The third major problem is human resources. We do not have adequate human resource support. We do not have people who are trained with renewable energy technology or with climate strategies or climate planning. That's why we need adequate workforce. Because our workforce, जैसे कि आप मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर्स भी अगर देखो तो उनकी ट्रेनिंग कैसी हुई है? बाय यूजिंग फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, थर्मोडायनामिक्स, वो पूरा वही सिस्टम है ना उनका. मतलब वो ट्रेनिंग नहीं हुई है हमारी कि रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी पे कैसे हमें शिफ्ट करना है. The other major problem is, now this is a renewed debate and it's a very popular debate between the Republicans and the Democrats, is there is no guarantee that if we adopt climate resilient measures now, if we arrest the rate of greenhouse gases emission, especially carbon dioxide emission, there is no guarantee that we will be able to reverse the rate of climate change. There is no guarantee because already for 200, 300 years, we have emitted enough carbon dioxide into the air. And have you heard about something called carbon sequestration? It means trapping the carbon from atmosphere and putting it into organic resources, like say, for example, forests, etc. And there has been a lot of cleaning of the green patch as well. तो इतना कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड ऑलरेडी जा चुका है एटमॉस्फेयर में कि अब चाहे तुम कुछ भी कर लो, वो क्लाइमेट चेंज का जो रेट है वो आप नहीं उसको रिवर्स कर पाओगे. ये एक डिबेट चल रही है. बट अगेन वी कैन नॉट थिंक ऑन दोज लाइन्स कंप्लीटली. इफ दैट इज द केस देन इट्स लाइक थिंकिंग कि चाहे कुछ भी कर लो सिलेक्शन तो होना नहीं है, तो फिर तो लोग छोड़ ही देंगे पढ़ना. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? द पॉइंट इज वी हैव टू बी ऑप्टिमिस्टिक इन आवर अप्रोच. वेल, दैट इज द बैकग्राउंड in the light of which this chapter has been written in Economic Survey. Again, a very important chapter. Focus will be again on schemes, because a lot of questions can come from this chapter which focus on schemes related to environment and climate change, right? Now you can go on to the MOEFCC or PIB website and you can check for all the schemes that are related to environment and climate change. Anyhow, we are going to cover that under this course, but nevertheless you must also do some effort on your own. और अगर आप उसको देखोगे तो आपको समझ में आ जाएगा कि जितने भी क्वेश्चंस आ रहे इकोलॉजी में, इकोलॉजी सेक्शन के जितने क्वेश्चन में 7-8 क्वेश्चन तो इसी चैप्टर से आ जाएंगे, डायरेक्टली और इनडायरेक्टली. दैट्स व्हाई इट बिकम्स अ वेरी क्रूशियल चैप्टर. So you see that there are 3 important problems with respect to climate change. First one is technology, the second one is funding, and third one is human resources. These are the 3 major problems that the developing countries are facing today. Developing countries वो क्या कह रहे हैं? वो ये कह रहे हैं कि हम तैयार हैं, but we want common but differentiated responsibilities. One shoe, you can understand, does not fit in all feet. So we cannot have one size for all. That's why we must have different treatments for nations which are differently placed. It also upholds the principle of justice and equality. Do you understand that? On one hand, we have developing issues, development issues. अगर हम इनको sacrifice करके अभी climate के ऊपर जाएंगे, तो many people will die. And if we focus here only and we neglect climate, then future generations will die. Do you understand that? So it's a kind of dilemma फॉर डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज। सो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज क्या कह रहे हैं, वो बस एक ही चीज कह रहे हैं, आप हमको टेक्नोलॉजी दे दो, या तो पैसे दे दो, हम खुद टेक्नोलॉजी बना लेंगे, या तो लोग दे दो जो हमको हेल्प कर सकते हैं टेक्नोलॉजी बनाने में। वो कुछ भी नहीं दे रहे। लाइक आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल। यू आर ऑल अवेयर अबाउट द कंपनी कॉल्ड टेस्ला। टेस्ला वांट्स टू एस्टैब्लिश अ प्लांट इन इंडिया। तो इंडिया ने क्या बोला है टेस्ला को कि आप यहां पे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट लगाओ और फिर यहां पे इलेक्ट्रिक कार्स बेचो। लेकिन वो क्या चाहते हैं, नहीं यहाँ पे वो सिर्फ वेयर हाउस बनाएंगे, क्योंकि यहाँ पे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग होगी तो पता तो चल जाएगा टेक्नोलॉजी। और उनको ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे मारुति सुजुकी का जो हुआ है, आपको पता है ना, पूरी टेक्नोलॉजी मारुति ने सीख ली एक तरीके से और फिर अलग हो गया। हीरो होंडा का भी वही हुआ। तो इनको लग रहा है कि टेस्ला के साथ भी ऐसा ही कुछ ना हो जाए। चाइना में तो वैसे ही दे आर डूइंग देयर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, बट दिस इज द कंडीशन दैट इंडिया हैज लेड कि अगर आपको इलेक्ट्रिक कार्स बनाने हैं यहाँ पे, तो आप यहाँ पर आकर प्लांट लगाइए। ऑब्वियसली दैट वुड बी एनकरेजमेंट ऑफ एफडीआई, दैट वुड बी ऑल्सो एनकरेजमेंट टू मेक इन इंडिया। तो ये सारी चीजें हमारी पॉलिसीज के ट्यून में है, बट वो नहीं चाहते ऐसा, वो टेक्नोलॉजी देना ही नहीं चाहते, क्योंकि अगर टेक्नोलॉजी उन्होंने दे दिया तो उनका जो एज है वो चला जाएगा। ठीक है, पर अगर आप नहीं देना चाहते टेक्नोलॉजी, आप नहीं पैसे देना चाहते, आप लोग भी नहीं देना चाहते, तो कम से कम ये तो मान लो कि हमारी और आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी अलग होगी। टोटल एमिशन जो होता है, ओवरऑल एमिशन, उसमें इंडिया का परसेंटेज शेयर बहुत कम है और पर कैपिटा तो बहुत ही कम। एक एवरेज अमेरिकन जितना इलेक्ट्रिसिटी यूज करता है उतना 50 इंडियन मिलके भी नहीं यूज करता। His entire day is driven by power. Have you seen that? और इंडियंस का ऐसा है नहीं। So that's the case. वेस्टर्न यूरोपियन कंट्रीज में अब एक बहुत रिन्यूड जील है। कंट्रीज लाइक नॉर्वे, स्वीडन, स्विट्जरलैंड, फिनलैंड, इन सब में, डेनमार्क, इन सब में एक रिन्यूड जील है कि हमें क्लाइमेट के लिए लड़ना है, क्लाइमेट के लिए लड़ना है। लेकिन बात यह है कि these all are developed countries. Do you remember the per capita income of Switzerland? 66,000 some dollars. And what is India's per capita income? बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी ये। ठीक है, और देखो सबसे बड़ा मैं आपको सबूत बताता हूं, जब जान पे बनाती है तो सब भूल जाते हैं बड़े बड़े एथिक्स। I'll give you an example. When this Russia-Ukraine war broke out, per capita coal consumption in Europe went up. They started burning more fossil fuels. क्यों? क्योंकि they wanted to keep themselves warm and their houses well lit during winters. And because gas and petrol, that supply was cut off, per capita coal consumption, कोयला जलाया यूरोपियंस ने, आप सोच सकते हो, और हर घर में भर भर के, तब कुछ याद नहीं आया इनको। लेकिन अगर इंडिया में आ जाओ, if some remote village in Punjab, remote village in Bengal or Bihar or Tamil Nadu, they have all their attention there. Why we are burning fossil fuels? Do you understand that? That's the problem. That is India's reservation. और ये एक ही इशू है जिसमें India and China are on the same page. Do you understand that? That is climate change. Because हम दोनों का व्यू बिल्कुल सेम है climate change को लेकर, कि डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज जो हैं वो या तो हमको टेक्नोलॉजी दे दे, या तो फंड दे दे, या फंडिंग मैकेनिज्म्स बना दे, जैसे कोई एनवायरमेंटल बैंक, इस टाइप का कुछ, और ह्यूमन रिसोर्स सपोर्ट दे, जिससे कि हम क्लाइमेट चेंज से लड़ सकें। सो लेट्स टेक अ लुक एट दिस। Give you some facts. So the chapter is entitled as Climate Change and Environment Preparing to Face the Future. Because climate change is all discussions always with respect to future. So look here, many nations pledge to reduce their net emission to zero by 2050, some by 2060, some by 2070. इंडिया ने क्या टारगेट रखा है? 2070. चाइना ने रखा है 2060, और ये यूरोपियन सारे 2050, 20-20 साल पहले ये सारे अडॉप्ट करने को तैयार हैं। So look here. The IPCC highlights that the challenges faced due to global warming are mainly due to the cumulative, historical and current greenhouse gas emissions of developed countries. Sixth assessment report जो आई है, it says high human vulnerability hotspots इन्होंने identify किया, और वो कहाँ है देखो, West, Central, East Africa, South Asia, Central and South America, small island developing states and the Arctic. Further, as per the report, Asia is most vulnerable to climate change. Now, are you aware about this? कि मॉरिशस की जो कैबिनेट है, उन्होंने एक अंडर वाटर कैबिनेट की मीटिंग ली, जैसे स्कूबा डाइवर्स होते हैं, आपको पता है ना। सो उनका प्राइम मिनिस्टर और उनके कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर इन सब ने नीचे पानी के नीचे जाकर कैबिनेट की मीटिंग ली और उसकी तस्वीर भी खींची एंड इट वाज फ्लैशिंग ऑल ओवर द न्यूज़पेपर्स. वेल दैट वाज सिंबोलिज्म. मैसेज डिलीवर कर रहे थे वो कि अगर हम क्लाइमेट चेंज से नहीं लड़े तो हमारी मीटिंग ऐसी होने वाली है आगे. So you understand that? It means all Mauritius, Maldives, Lakshadweep, ये सब डूब जाएंगे. Do you understand? A lot of coastal Andhra, coastal Tamil Nadu, coastal Kerala, all will be drowned. Anyhow, so look here. Ironically, the burden of adaptation is highest for those who have contributed the least. It means the developing countries. Lack of technology, financial resources, skilled and trained human resources are the most important challenges faced by developing countries. Further, many European countries have increased their coal consumption due to Russia-Ukraine conflict. इसमें इनको शर्म नहीं आई, लेकिन they always point out towards India. In general, citizens in developed countries expressed considerable reluctance to change their lifestyle and habits, especially with respect to driving, flying, and eating. Do you understand that? In the Western countries, you see that there is a kind of tilt towards protein-rich food. And protein-rich food means poultry, beef, etc. And all of this requires a lot of carbon emission. Do you understand that? So that's why in the developed countries, in the developing countries, obviously protein is a part of the diet, but our diet is not so protein heavy. Do you understand that? But their diet is very protein heavy. In fact, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका में तो एक अवर्जन है वेजिटेरियन फूड को लेकर. नाउ सम पीपल आर बिकमिंग वीगन, दैट्स एन ऑलटुगेदर डिफरेंट स्टोरी, बट देयर इज अ काइंड ऑफ अवर्जन टुवर्ड्स वेजिटेरियन फूड. देयर इज मोर फोकस ऑन नॉन वेजिटेरियन टाइप ऑफ फूड. और उनका आप इंग्लिश ब्रेकफास्ट देख लो, इट ऑल्सो द प्लेट इज फुल ऑफ नॉन वेजिटेरियन आइटम्स. सो वॉट एवर द केस इज, the point here to be noted is that their dietary habits, their driving habits, or their lifestyle in general is such that net per capita emission is too high when compared to an average Indian or a Chinese. Now look here, जब इस पे एक सर्वे हुआ कि क्या आप अपना लाइफस्टाइल बदलेंगे, so see, France tried and retreated in 2018. उन्होंने कुछ पॉलिसीज लगाई थी जिससे आप लाइफस्टाइल चेंज कर सकते हो. स्विट्जरलैंड्स प्रपोजल वाज डिफीटेड इन रेफरेंडम कि हम नहीं चेंज करेंगे अपना लाइफस्टाइल. देन व्हाई आर दे प्रेशराइजिंग अस? Also you see that shift to renewable energy looks very attractive, but it is not very practical because you have to change entire technology. अच्छा, आपने एक कंपनी का नाम तो सुना ही होगा, नोकिया, right? It was once a world leader, but it collapsed. Why? Because it became too huge, and when something becomes too huge, it becomes very difficult to change it very quickly. Do you understand that? But when your main production line is thin and lean, you can change it very quickly. That's why it's like, think of you are the driver of a 16-wheel truck. So to turn it, twist it on the road would be very difficult. But अगर आप पैदल चल रहे हो तो कितना आसान है. Do you understand that? So that was the scenario. Anyhow, see, Nobel laureate Thomas Schelling, he has given a kind of argument. He says that most effective way to combat climate change was to let nations grow first. पहले इनको developed हो जाने दो. जैसे ही developed हो जाएंगे ये सब adopt कर लेंगे. And why you are having so much of less faith on human intelligence? Human beings may develop the technologies that can quickly arrest the rate of global climate change. So allow the developing countries to develop. Until that time, the developed countries take the burden because you can bear the burden. Do you understand that? India, considered to be one of the most vulnerable countries given its long coastline, monsoon dependent agriculture and large agrarian economy, India has contributed only 4% until 2019 to the cumulative global emission, and its per capita emission is far less than the world average. Common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities should be the way forward if we want to fight climate change. That is India's argument. Do you understand that? And it looks very valid as well. Now, एक चीज और देखो कि रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के लिए एक और फाइट जो चल रही है, वो फाइट है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू रेयर अर्थ एलिमेंट्स एंड क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स. नाउ रेयर अर्थ एलिमेंट्स और क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स ये क्या होते हैं? ये कुछ ऐसे एलिमेंट्स हैं which are rarely found in the earth, and these elements can be utilized to generate renewable energy. Also, they have wide scale application in the electronics and telecommunication industry. बट ये रेयर अर्थ मिनरल्स जो है बहुत कम कंट्रीज के पास है, और उसमें भी बहुत उनमें से भी कम कंट्री है जिनके पास टेक्नोलॉजी है to extract the rare earth minerals. So it is believed that how oil became the battleground for geopolitics, rare earth minerals will be the new battleground for geopolitics in the world. That is what is the assumption now. Rare earth minerals सबसे ज्यादा किसके पास है? Which country? China. China has the highest rare earth minerals, 42 million tons. That's what China. And what about India? Is it in the top 5? Yes, India also has rich reserves of rare earth mineral. आप कुछ भी mineral किसी भी चीज की बात करो, our country is climatically, tectonically, geologically so diverse that you will find it in India in some part or the other, right? So in peninsular India we have some reserves of rare earth minerals. But anyhow, तो देखो एक चीज देख लो यहाँ पर. As though these challenges are not enough, many experts also warn of availability of rare earth elements and critical minerals to be the next geopolitical battleground, as crude oil has been over the last 50 years. As we are aware, RE and CM are essential for generating renewable energy. The problem is that they are produced in a few countries and processed even in fewer countries. मतलब technology नहीं है. A globally synchronized energy transition to non-fossil fuels might be difficult to pull off if adequate RE and CM are not available. This chapter presents an updated discussion on the issue of climate change from India's perspective, including a discussion on forests and their role in mitigating carbon emissions, and approach to transition to renewable energy, and the recently submitted low emissions development strategy. तो ये चारों चीजें हैं इस चैप्टर में mostly, but you take a look at the rare earth minerals. Now this is not given in the survey, but just for your knowledge I have included this slide. Rare earth elements are a group of 17 elements whose importance is critical in high technology. High technology means high-end technology. Their use has exploded as electronics and renewable technologies increasingly have become part of everyone's daily lives. देखो वर्ल्ड टोटल इतना टन है, और चाइना के पास देखो सबसे ज्यादा है. It's almost 42 to 44 million tons. Then Vietnam has good, India also has good reserves. But देखो बहुत सारी कंट्री, देखो यूएस. और सबसे बड़ी बात क्या है कि यूएस के पास जो है वो भी उसको प्रोसेस करने के लिए चाइना का हेल्प लेना पड़ता है. Because China has developed the technology. We are also on the verge of developing the technology. We can also extract our own rare earth elements. और हमारे पास अच्छा रिजर्व है, right? But the problem is politics around it. आपको पता है जब भी किसी element extraction की बात होगी, then there would be some NGOs which will come in and they would say that you cannot extract minerals from here. Well, if the challenge is valid, then it's okay. But many times, many IB reports have found out that they are foreign funded NGOs and they want to stall the growth and development in the country. So anyhow, Brazil, और तो इस पे एक बार नजर मार लेना, क्योंकि एक ऑर्डर आ सकता है that which country has the highest reserves of rare earth elements, or arrange the countries in terms of their reserves, so far discovered reserves. अब किसी और कंट्री में बहुत ज्यादा निकल जाए तो अलग बात है, बट चाइना सेम्स देखो, चाइना के पास करीब करीब 37% of the total world reserves है. Now look here. Next we take a look at the 8 national missions on National Action Plan for Climate Change. तो इसमें ज्यादा आपको कुछ ध्यान में नहीं रखना है, बस ये मिशंस ध्यान में रख लेना, बिकॉज इट्स अ वेरी ओल्ड प्रोग्राम, 2008 का प्रोग्राम है. तो बस ये देखेंगे कि अब तक हमारी अचीवमेंट क्या आई है. सो नेशनल सोलर मिशन, अब अगर सोलर पे कोई क्वेश्चन आएगा तो इट वुड बी मोर फ्रॉम इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस rather than national solar mission. बट फिर भी एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा आ सकता है, which of the following are included in the NAPCC, ऐसा कुछ आ सकता है. So it's national solar mission, solar power capacity of 61.62 gigawatt installed by October 22. ये अचीवमेंट हो. 100 gigawatt का हमारा टारगेट है. नेशनल एमिशन फॉर एनहांस्ड एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी, पैट साइकिल 7 चल रहा है. Then national mission on sustainable habitat, national mission for a green India, national water mission. Now again this you know that जल जीवन वो वाला आ गया है अभी. National mission on strategic knowledge for climate change, national mission for sustaining Himalayan ecosystem, and national mission for sustainable agriculture. इसमें कुछ ज़्यादा डिटेल में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. There is a very less chance that there would be a question directly on the basis of the targets that we have achieved under these missions, because these targets may change, right, by the time you write your examination. But there could be a question, which of the following are included in the NAPCC? तो वो बस आप ध्यान में रखना, उससे ज़्यादा कुछ भी रखने की ज़रूरत नहीं है ना। ये भी देख लो कि यूज कहाँ कहाँ होता है, रेयर अर्थ मिनरल, मैग्नेट, लाइट, स्क्रीन, ग्लास, कैटलिस्ट, बैटरी, स्टील अलॉयज। तो अगर हम इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल की तरफ जाते हैं तो आपको पता है वी नीड बैटरीज एंड रेयर अर्थ एलिमेंट्स विल हेल्प इन इंप्रूविंग द efficiency. Now look here, India's climate vision is integrally linked to its vision of development that foregrounds the goals of poverty eradication and guaranteeing basic well-being to all its citizens. So National Action Plan on Climate Change, it was launched in 2008. It established 8 national missions covering several initiatives and a slew of measures. तो इसमें अगर क्वेश्चन आता है तो कैसा क्वेश्चन आएगा वो मैंने आपको बता दिया, that which of the following are included in the National Action Plan for Climate Change. वही आ सकता है. National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change. It is a central sector scheme, is implemented in project mode, and to date 30 projects have been sanctioned in 27 states and union territories with a total project cost of 847.5 crore. No need of remembering any of these things, right? But just remember why it has been established. Obviously to fight climate change. Ramsar sites, India has 75 Ramsar sites. Again, this number may change by the time you take your examination. इस पे अगर question आएगा तो ऐसा आएगा, which of the following is the Ramsar site? और Ramsar Convention के ऊपर कोई क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, right? But that anyhow will be part of your basic ecology classes. Mangrove cover, the National Coastal Mission Program. This is for increasing the mangrove cover. ये बस याद रखना आप. So regulatory measures are implemented through Coastal Regulation Zone Notification under the Environment Protection Act 1986, the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, the Indian Forest Act 1927. तो ये सारे acts हैं जिसके अंडर regulation होता है, right? Again, there could be questions on these acts. Got it? But these are very basic kind of things, so I'm not covering them under survey. River conservation and rejuvenation. The government is working on mapping and converging the 5 P's. So, इस पे question हो सकता है that river conservation and rejuvenation talks about 5 P's. Which of the following are the P's? Do you understand that? तो हो सकता है उसमें कुछ और P से कुछ और ही डाल दे. So, people, policy, plan, program, project. बस ये ध्यान रखना आप. But again, यहाँ पे भी एक चीज और लिंक कर सकते हैं, that is the नमामि गंगे program. So that can also be linked. Nationally determined contribution. This is under Paris Climate Change Accord, where countries have pledged that they would reduce their emissions. So it's more of a voluntary target. India has achieved what it had promised, or on the path of achieving what it had promised, right? Article 4 of Paris Agreement. Transition to renewable energy resources. As per the Renewables 2022 Global Status Report during the period 2014-21, total investment in renewables stood at $78.1 billion in India. The likely installed capacity by the end of 2029-30 is expected to be more than 800 gigawatt, of which non-fossil fuel would be more than 500 gigawatt. बताओ अब क्या करें, जान दे दे. इतना तो हम कर रहे हैं, वो भी 10 साल के अंदर. ठीक है, that's our target. So it's very unjust to call India that it is not doing enough with respect to climate change. And this is how you see, this is just a distribution of nuclear and other sources कि किसका कितना share होने वाला है total. Green hydrogen. Have you heard about green hydrogen? What is green hydrogen, gray hydrogen? What is the difference? Green hydrogen is the hydrogen which is prepared by renewable energy. Do you understand that? Or green hydrogen today has a very less share in the overall hydrogen market. Hydrogen, obviously, you can understand, is an input for so many industries. तो देखो, green hydrogen को बनाने के लिए instruments चाहिए होते हैं, technology चाहिए होती है, and one such technology is the electrolyzer. Now, it separates what? It separates water and hydrogen molecules in water. ठीक है, तो उसके बाद से oxygen and hydrogen molecules in water, तो उससे भी काफी फायदा हो जाता है. The government approved the National Green Hydrogen Mission to facilitate demand creation, production, utilization and export of green hydrogen and mobilization of over 8 lakh crore of investment by 2030. A recent report by the International Renewable Energy Agency suggests that the cost of electrolyzers is crucial for making green hydrogen economically viable. So just a quick definition of what is green hydrogen. Again, these things are not included in the survey. Green hydrogen is hydrogen generated by renewable energy or from low carbon power. Green hydrogen has significantly lower carbon emissions than grey hydrogen, which is produced by steam reforming of natural gas, which makes up the bulk of hydrogen market. Right? Today we are mostly in the realm of grey hydrogen, but we are shifting towards green hydrogen. Have you also heard about biofuels? तो वो भी एक नेशनल बायोफ्यूल पॉलिसी 2018, रीड अबाउट दैट, देयर कुड बी अ क्वेश्चन ऑन दैट. एन इलेक्ट्रोलाइजर इज अ डिवाइस केपेबल ऑफ स्प्लिटिंग वाटर मॉलिक्यूल्स इनटू कंसिस्टेंट कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट ऑक्सीजन एंड द हाइड्रोजन एटम्स. तो ये आप देख लो कि ये किसका कितना शेयर होगा ओवरऑल 29-30 तक. When we are talking about 800 gigawatt, out of that 500 gigawatt हम रिन्यूएबल से बनाएंगे, तो उसमें रिन्यूएबल्स का किसका क्या क्या शेयर होगा वो आप देख लो. Now, are you aware about this pumped storage projects, PSP? Have you heard about this? Now, what happens in this? Look, this is what happens. That there are two chambers. You have water in the upper chamber, and water is then, it is allowed to pass to the lower chamber, and when it is passed, there is obviously a turbine fixed here which moves and you generate hydroelectric power, and with this power that you have generated, you pump the water back into the reservoir which is located at the upper height or upper elevation. So it's a cycle which goes on. Do you understand that? And so some of this power is utilized in operating the entire machine, the rest of it can be utilized elsewhere. So ये जो है एक technology, India has also cracked this technology, and today we are focusing on it. So just take a look at that. The Ministry of Power recently issued draft guidelines to promote pumped storage projects in India. Pumped storage hydro plants are storage system based on hydropower operations between two or more reservoirs, upper and lower, with an elevation difference. At the time of demand, downward water flow generates electricity with a hydraulic turbine, and water is pumped back to the upper reservoir using power from grid or renewable energy sources with an overall efficiency of 75 to 80%. Do you understand that? It means the net losses are very less. But whereas in thermal power plants, you know, there is a lot of losses that we have to encounter. So these are the salient features of the National Green Hydrogen Mission. उसमें भी बस कुछ targets ही लिखे हुए हैं. So just go through them. Not necessary to by heart any of it. No need, right? Don't waste your time. Then what about the financial measures? Finance for sustainable development. First thing is green bonds. Now, what is green bonds? Are you aware about this term? Green bonds. What are they? Who issues them? Who issues green bonds? Who can issue green bond? Okay, can governments issue green bond? Can governments issue green bond? Can corporates issue green bond? Anybody can issue green bonds. The point is that it's a debt instrument. उसको issue करके आप पैसा लेते हो, but you have to put that money into clean projects. Do you understand that? Now, when government issues green bonds, they are known as sovereign green bonds. Do you get that? So take a look at this. Green bonds are financial instruments that generate proceeds for investment in environmentally sustainable and climate suitable projects. IMF data indicates that green bonds of value around 620 billion US dollars were issued across the world in the year 2021. The Union Budget 22-23 announced the issue of sovereign green bonds. It means government issuing green bonds. Obviously, RBI does that on behalf of the government. The RBI auctioned two tranches of 4,000 crores worth of bonds in 5 years and 10 years categories. Means maturity period is 5 year, 10 year. That's nothing but loan that government is taking. Obviously, all that money is pumped into the Ministry of Renewable Energy, right? Then they channelize it to different kinds of projects. Regulatory framework for issuance of green debt securities. RBI has incentivized bank lending towards greener industries and projects. For example, renewable energy projects have been included under priority sector lending. तो ये एक चीज आप ध्यान में रखो, that lending for green projects is under priority sector lending now, right? Which is the biggest component of priority sector lending? Agriculture. ये याद रखना. SEBI introduced the regulatory framework for the issuance of green debt securities as a mode of sustainable finance under the erstwhile SEBI issue and listing of debt securities regulation 2008. But again, ये उतना आपको ध्यान में रखने की जरूरत नहीं है, बस आपको ध्यान में रखने की जरूरत है what are green bonds, right? There could be a question around what are green bonds, who can issue green bonds, and recently the government of India has issued green bonds. There could be a statement like that. All these statements are true. So green securities ki bhi, you can just see this is nothing but see, look here, This line is important. SEBI has been one of the early adopters of sustainability report for listed entities and requires mandatory environment, social and governance related disclosures for the top 100 listed entities by market capitalization since 2012. Now, what are listed entities? Listed entities are those companies whose shares are listed in the stock market. तो उसमें से top 100 companies on the basis of market capitalization or their market share, they have to submit periodic reports to SEBI related to their environment, social and governance measures that they have taken. Do you understand that? अच्छा, आप देखोगे, if you go to supermarkets now, every time you pick up a product, you would see that it has its MRP, which indicates that whether that product is in your economic capacity or not. Then maybe ingredients, so you check your health also by looking at the ingredients, directions for use. But now there is a mandatory thing that has been included in all the production processes, is that you have to also indicate how much damage you have caused to the environment while you were building that product. तो अब वो भी है. कई बार आपने देखा होगा कि उसमें लिखा होता है नेट जीरो एमिशन, कि ये पूरा करने पर नेट जीरो एमिशन हुआ है. सो दैट ऑल्सो कैन हैव एन इम्पैक्ट ऑन कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर. So that is what SEBI has been doing since 2012. So it's old, but just for your knowledge. Now, what are the major decisions of Conference of Parties 27 under the UNFCCC? Now, it was held in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Assistance to loss and damage. इसमें क्वेश्चन कैसे आ सकता है? क्वेश्चन या तो जो हाईलाइटेड है वो सीधा सीधा उस पे आ सकता है, that recently the COP was concluded in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. It relates to, or there could be a very simple question, it was conducted in Sharm el-Sheikh, right? वो भी आ सकता है, you never know. So assistance to loss and damage, it was decided to establish new funding arrangements for assisting developing countries vulnerable to adverse effects of climate change in responding to loss and damage. But ये सिर्फ बातें हैं, कुछ किया नहीं है अब तक. Global goal on adaptation. COP27 saw progress on adaptation, with governments agreeing on how to move forward on the global goal on adaptation, which will conclude at COP28 and inform the first global stock take in 2023. Then funding during COP27, it was also recognized the target of $100 billion per year is yet to be achieved. तो मतलब ये ना फंडिंग हुई है, ना कोई लॉस डैमेज के लिए प्रॉमिस किया है, और ग्लोबल गोल वो भी डाल दिया है 28 के ऊपर. समझ में आ रहा है? क्योंकि अभी तो रशिया यूक्रेन चल रहा है, तो खुद कोल जला रहे हैं, तो किस मुंह से बात करेंगे? COP21 decided that prior to 2025, a new collective quantified goal on climate finance form, a floor of $100 billion per year shall be set. मतलब अभी क्लाइमेट फंड और क्लाइमेट बैंक बनाने की तरफ पहला कदम है, आप समझ लो. Agriculture and food security, agreement on joint work on the implementation of climate action on agriculture and food security to be conducted over 4 years. It was decided to set up the just transition and mitigation work program. Now, what is this just transition and mitigation? Are you aware about these two terms, mitigation and adaptation? What is the difference? Mitigation is, now you want to eliminate that. Adaptation is, it has happened, you have to adapt. No, that is adaptation, right? So best is prevention, then mitigation, then adaptation. Mitigation is long term. ठीक है, वो बहुत टाइम लगता है उसमें. India's participation at COP27. India has participated in COP27 with a focus on mainstreaming theme of lifestyle for environment. India ने मतलब एकदम समझ लो ना, दुखती नस पे हाथ रख दिया है. ये बोला है कि आप अपने ईटिंग हैबिट्स, आप अपने ड्राइविंग हैबिट्स, लाइफस्टाइल हैबिट्स, ये सब सही कर लो, बहुत सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. बट ऑब्वियसली आपने देखा है वो रेफरेंडम हुआ था, स्विट्जरलैंड में हार गए वो. India submitted this long-term low-carbon development strategy. That's also a very important thing. What is long-term low-carbon strategy? The 2015 Paris Agreement requires all parties to create a long-term low greenhouse gas emissions development strategies based on their various responsibilities and capabilities as per the different national level circumstances. So it's more like a nationally determined contribution. तो वो तो आप कर ही रहे हो शॉर्ट टर्म में, लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए भी अपनी एक स्ट्रेटेजी बनाओ. ये पेरिस क्लाइमेट चेंज ने बोला था, ठीक है, जो समिट हुआ था. नाउ इंडियाज इनिशिएटिव एट द इंटरनेशनल स्टेज, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, यहां से क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, और दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस, देखो International Solar Alliance is a treaty-based intergovernmental organization working to create a global market system to tap the benefits of solar power and to promote clean energy. बात क्या है यहाँ पर important? ISA's mission is to unlock $1 trillion of investment in solar by 2030. तो ये एक statement आ सकता है आपके examination में. Is the first international intergovernmental organization to be set up in India. Headquarter जिसका इंडिया में है, ठीक है. ISA is partnering with multilateral development banks, development financial institution, DFIs, private and public sector organizations, civil society, international institution. अब देखो इससे क्वेश्चन आएगा तो कैसा आएगा? Which of the following statements are true with respect to the International Solar Alliance? पहला स्टेटमेंट ये हो सकता है that it is India's initiative. Second, it is the first organization or first convention or treaty which is headquartered in India. The target is $1 trillion by 2030. इस तरह के कुछ क्वेश्चन स्टेटमेंट्स आ सकते हैं. दैट इज व्हाट. और चौथा ये स्टेटमेंट आ सकता है दैट इट इज प्योरली अ गवर्नमेंट इनिशिएटिव. नो, इट हैज प्राइवेट सेक्टर, सिविल सोसाइटी सब है, क्योंकि क्लाइमेट से रिलेटेड कुछ भी चीज होगा तो हम किसी एक के ऊपर नहीं डाल सकते. इट हैज टू बी एवरीबॉडीज जॉइंट एफर्ट. देन द सेकेंड इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज कोalition for disaster resilient infrastructure. CDRI was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister of India during the United Nations Climate Action Summit on 23rd September 2019 in New York. It's global partnership of national governments, UN agencies and UN programs, multilateral development banks and financial mechanisms, the private sector and academic and knowledge institutions. It aims to promote the resilience of infrastructure system to climate and disaster risk. Like say for example, earthquake resilient infrastructure or flood resilient infrastructure. Is tarike ka infrastructure, right? And obviously you know that when there would be climate change, there would be frequent floods and droughts. So we must build infrastructure as well. So this is also India's initiative, ये याद रखना आप. या ऐसा भी आ सकता है, देखो which of the following are India's initiative? ISA आ गया, ये एक ऑप्शन आ गया और ये तीसरा ऑप्शन आ गया. इस तरीके का कुछ, ठीक है. Now this is leadership group for industry transition, lead IT. It was launched by the governments of Sweden and India. तो ये याद रखना. It is a joint project by the government of India and हो सकता है स्वीडन, नॉर्वे, ऐसा कुछ कुछ ऑप्शंस रहा, तो स्वीडन इज द आंसर. वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम backs it. Lead IT members subscribe to the notion that energy intensive industries can and must progress to low carbon pathways aiming to achieve net zero carbon emission. Do you understand that? स्वीडन है इसमें, IMF है इसमें, सॉरी वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम है इसमें, और इसमें जो है दैट इज फॉर नेट जीरो एमिशन इन द लॉन्ग टर्म. ये तीनों चीजें आप याद रखना. Initiatives related to environmental issue, conservation of biodiversity. Now, look here, this chapter is very big, but I have picked only those statements which makes absolute sense for the examination. So just go through this, that would be enough. You would be wasting your time if you read the entire chapter. But if you want to, you are always welcome. India ranks 8th in the world and 4th in Asia among mega diverse countries in the world. India and Nepal signed a memorandum of understanding on biodiversity conservation to strengthen and enhance the coordination and cooperation in the field of forest, wildlife, environment, biodiversity, conservation and climate change. Are you aware about the Tarai region? वहीं पे implement हो रहा है ये project India और Nepal वाला. Wildlife, again this might change with time. Again the question is which tiger reserve is located where? Like say for example, have you heard about this tiger called Ustad? कभी सुना है उसकी कहानी सुनी है उस्ताद की? Tiger 24. That was his number. Ustad is a tiger in the Ranthambore National Park. Now it turned to be a man-eater. It killed 5 people, right? And therefore it was dislocated and it was treated very badly. All across Rajasthan, in particular in the country in general, there were protests in favor of Ustad. बताओ ये कैसे हो सकता है? It killed 5 people, right, including a forest guard. And now एक बार उसके इकोसिस्टम में सेट हो गया, मतलब समझ रहे हो ना, that is food. ऐसा समझ में आ गया तो फिर तो it would be a man-eater. Point is, all those killings were in the core area where human interference is prohibited. And the tiger had to suffer for that. Do you understand that? And as we moved Ustad out of Ranthambore, Ranthambore ecosystem started collapsing. So there was a kind of hue and cry all across the country that we must treat. So like again, I'll tell the names of few national parks. You have to tell me where they are located. Okay, just quiz type का ऐसा है. मानस नेशनल पार्क, कान्हा किस लिए, कान्हा किस लिए, कान्हा किस लिए नेशनल पार्क, एमपी, डेजर्ट नेशनल पार्क, श्योर, बांधवगढ़, तो ये देख लेना, ठीक है। यू जस्ट हैव टू चेक दैट वेयर दिस नेशनल पार्क्स आर, वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरीज आर, उस पर क्वेश्चन आएगा ही आएगा। अब देखो जितने हैं उतने ही रखना, अपने से बढ़ा मत देना। Also, you see that Indian elephant has been listed in Appendix 1 of Convention of the Migratory Species in the Conference of Parties of CMS. मतलब वो जो sites वाला होता था, उसमें अब elephant आ गया, ये याद रखना। India achieved the global goal of doubling the tiger numbers in 2018, 4 years before the targeted year of 2022. तो फार्मर इनकम डबल नहीं हो पाया, लेकिन टाइगर पॉपुलेशन हो गया। फार्मर इनकम डबल नहीं हो पाया बिकॉज एग्रेरियन रिफॉर्म्स वेर स्टॉल्ड। अगर वो हो जाता तो हो जाता वो भी। Wildlife Protection Amendment Act 2022. These are two changes that have been made. The act seeks to increase the number of species protected under the law and implement the convention on मतलब sites जो है वो. The act empowers the government to regulate or prohibit the import, trade, possession or proliferation of invasive alien species because that can distort the entire ecological balance. Plastic waste management and elimination of identified single-use plastic. And you know, there was a renewed zeal on the elimination of single-use plastic. दिल्ली में बहुत जगहों पे आपको नहीं मिलेगा प्लास्टिक, राइट? एंड टू एलिमिनेट प्लास्टिक, व्हाई प्लास्टिक इज सो पॉपुलर? इट्स ड्यूरेबल, इट्स चीप. यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? अनलेस वी गेट एन ऑल्टरनेटिव फॉर दैट, एलिमिनेशन ऑफ प्लास्टिक विल बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट. क्योंकि वो आप देखोगे जो खाना भी देते होंगे वो भी बोलते होंगे शुरू शुरू में कि प्लास्टिक नहीं है अलाउड, या आप सब्जी वाले के पास भी जाते हो तो वो भी कहते नहीं आप अपने घर से कुछ लेकर आओ बैग वगैरह, लेकिन 2-3 दिन बाद फिर से वो प्लास्टिक यूज करना शुरू कर देते हैं. व्हाई? बिकॉज देयर इज नो अदर ऑल्टरनेटिव एंड यू हैव टू थिंक अबाउट ऑल्टरनेटिव. फॉर दैट वी नीड व्हाट? टेक्नोलॉजी. वो मिलता नहीं. To reduce pollution caused due to littered plastic waste in the country, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India notified the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules 2021. Recently, a ban was imposed on the manufacturing, import, stocking, distribution, sale and use of identified single-use plastic items. The Plastic Waste Management Second Amendment Rules 2022 provides the statutory framework for biodegradable plastics after conforming to BIS standards and the Central Pollution Control Board certification. तो ये कुछ measures है बस that have been taken. The 5th United Nations Environment Assembly held in Nairobi. Resolution क्या था उसका देख लो. End plastic pollution towards an international legally binding instrument. There is no legally binding instrument internationally at present that tries to eliminate single-use plastic. Do you understand that? But वो अलग-अलग conventions के अंडर कहीं ना कहीं है. Battery waste management, and this will become a major challenge. Why? Because with the growth of electronics industry, with the growth of electric vehicles, etc., the government published the Battery Waste Management Rules 2022 to ensure environmentally sound management of waste batteries. The rules function on the concept of extended producer responsibility. Extended producer responsibility, इस पे question आ सकता है. That recently extended producer responsibility was in news. It relates to, देखो ये होता था पहले कि that suppose you are a manufacturer, you produce the batteries, and then your liability is over. Now the liability is with the consumer to dispose it off. But now producer has the liability to collect it, recollect it, process it, and then dispose it, right? So it's an extended producer responsibility. Who is producing? He or that organization has the responsibility. Where the producers, including importers of batteries, are responsible for the collection, recycling, refurbishment of waste batteries and the use of recovered materials from waste into new batteries. The rules cover all types of batteries. It means lithium-ion batteries, other kinds of batteries as well. E-waste management, उसके लिए भी जो rules हैं. The government notified the e-waste management rules 2022. Salient features क्या है वो देख लो. Applicable to every manufacturer, producer, refurbisher, dismantler and recycler. मतलब from the waste collectors to the waste-based industries, everyone is into the net. Schedule 1 has been expanded and now 106 electrical and electronic equipments have been included under the extended producer responsibility regime. Management of solar photovoltaic modules, panels, cells added into the new rules. Provisions for generation and transaction of EPR certificate has been introduced. मतलब extended producer responsibility, provisions for environmental compensation and verification audit have been introduced. Now देखो अब ये तो fact है, इसमें तो कोई कुछ कर ही नहीं सकता, जो कर दिया है वो कर दिया है. But these sentences are important because these are the e-waste management rule. E-waste management is very important today and very important for the examination specifically. So just keep an eye on these things. There could be statements directly from here. But देखो जो अब सबसे important है वो है Project Cheetah. Right? You know that recently 8 cheetahs were brought in India, 3 males and 5 females. Right? Cheetah had gone extinct in India in the year 1952, but the last cheetah was found somewhere around 47-48. But it was shot by a ruler, local ruler. 3 cheetahs, they were shot down by a local ruler. तो ये आप कुछ चीजें देख लो. It's the oldest of the big cat species. कुछ ऐसे statement आ सकते हैं आपको. Ancestors can be traced back to 8.5 million years. Number of cheetahs just under 7,500 individuals globally now. IUCN Red List जो है उनका Red Data Book, उसमें vulnerable category में आता है ये आप ध्यान में रखना. The Asiatic cheetah and the Northwest African cheetah are critically endangered. Cheetahs have lost 90% of their global habitat. Habitat destruction is the biggest cause for biodiversity loss. They now live in 9% of its historical range. मतलब जो भी था इनके पास लैंड इनका, उसका बस 9% ही बच गया है. Country's last spotted cheetah died in Sal forest of Chhattisgarh in Korea district, and local ruler killed it. Right, 3 cheetahs shot. उसके बाद फोटो भी खिंचवाई थी. Why reintroduce cheetahs? Okay, you tell me. Why we want to reintroduce the cheetahs? Where they have been reintroduced? Which national park? Puno National Park. Located in? Batao. Why we want to reintroduce the cheetahs? Give me 3 reasons. First, to restore the ecological balance, because once they were part of the Indian ecosystem, right? Second, it will also fetch us revenues. It will give a fillip to environmental tourism. Got it? Africa earns a lot by safari tourism. So वो एक benefit है. और तीसरा बताओ. It is our ethical responsibility to bring back the cheetahs. ठीक है? Because we only led to their extinction. एक बार एक आया question UPSC में, which of the following animals are critically endangered now in India? तो उसमें बहुत सारे animals के नाम थे. एक नाम चीता भी था हर ऑप्शन में, एक ऑप्शन को छोड़ के. बस वही आंसर था कि चीता तो एक्सटिंक्ट है. समझ में? बस अगर इतना ही याद आ जाता तो सॉल्व हो गया था वो क्वेश्चन. सो देखो, reintroduction of large carnivores have increasingly been recognized as a strategy to conserve threatened species and restore ecosystem functions. The cheetah is the only large carnivore that has been extirpated mainly by the overhunting in India in historical times. India now has the economic ability to consider restoring its lost natural heritage for ethical, economic as well as ecological reasons. Got it? By the way, what is the difference between cheetah and leopard? Is cheetah also known as leopard? Cheetahs run fast, leopards glide, cheetahs are long legs and leopards are short legs. Okay, what is the difference between cheetah, leopard, jaguar? So jaguars are only found in America, South America, leopards are found almost in Africa. Which are the fastest? Which is the fastest among the 3? Cheetah. Which is the biggest? No. In cheetah, jaguar, and क्या बोला था? Leopard. The point is, major difference is in their spots. Got it? वो आप देखोगे और head का shape. Cheetah has the smallest head. Obviously, that's how it can run fast, and it has a long tail. Whereas jaguar has a short tail, rounded head. और जो उनके marks है cheetah के, they are solid dots. And cheetahs have tear marks. Have you seen? Black tear mark. Jaguar and leopard do not have. Jaguar and leopard have rosettes. मतलब rose petals जैसे जैसे होते हैं, but jaguar के थोड़े और बड़े होते हैं और अंदर डॉट होता है. ये देखो. Cheetah, small rounded head with black tear marks. partially exposed claws, solid black spots. Leopard देखने में लगभग तो वैसे ही लगते हैं. Small densely packed rosettes and relatively small angular head, and whereas jaguar, if you see, it has more rounded, is more closer to the tiger, can you see, more powerful, but this is the fastest. But अब समझ लो अब टाइगर इससे भी बड़ा है, करीब इतना है और ऊंचा भी. It is the biggest cat of all, right? It has large rosettes with central spot, large rounded head, relatively short tail. If the tail is short, it's a good indicator that it cannot run fast. Do you understand that? Because while you run fast, the tail only give you direction. तो ये भी सर्वे में नहीं है, मैंने डाला है, देख लेना, मेरे को मालूम था. Let's move to the next chapter, which is agriculture and food management, from food security to nutritional security. अब देखो, again in this chapter, it is not required for you to remember each and every detail that it is 3%, 6%, या ऐसा कुछ grow हुआ है. It is not at all required. What is important for you is the different schemes that have been launched under the agriculture initiative. Got it? So just हम इसको देख लेंगे slides को. With its solid forward linkages, the agriculture and allied activities sector significantly contribute to country's overall growth and development by ensuring food security. Indian agriculture sector has been growing at an average annual growth rate of 4.6%. This all things we saw in the first chapter, do you remember? So we've already seen these things. In recent years, India has also rapidly emerged as the next exporter of agricultural products. पहले कुछ import भी करते थे हम, लेकिन हम क्या import करते हैं अभी भी बहुत सारा, 60% edible oil. Remember that. The year 2022 witnessed an early heat wave during the wheat harvesting season and then failed monsoon. We have seen all these, right, in the first chapter. MSP to ensure returns over the cost of production. The Union Budget 2018-19 announced that the farmers in India would be given MSP of at least 1.5 times the cost of production. That has been carried on till date. The government has been increasing the MSP for all 22 Kharif, Rabi and other commercial crops at least 50% since the agricultural year 2018-19. तब धीरे धीरे MSP को बढ़ाया ही जा रहा है. Well, the government is doing it, but I don't think that this is a very sustainable measure. More sustainable measure would be creation of agricultural infrastructure, training in agriculture and crop diversification. Whereas MSP, it not always encourage crop diversification. तो ये एक चीज है. Agricultural credit, if you see Kisan Credit Card Scheme, now it's a very old scheme, right? 1988 से. But अब इसके लिए क्या है कि देखो, it has been extended to fisheries and animal husbandry also. Previously, it was only for the peasants. Modified interest subvention scheme to provide short-term credit to farmers at subsidized interest rates. It means whatever the interest rate would be, government will give a subsidy on that. Suppose 10% is the interest rate on the loan, government will pay 5% of it. So the burden on the farmer would be only 5%. Do you understand that? But anyhow, agricultural loans cannot be given at 10% interest. They're given at 3%, 4%, ऐसा कुछ interest. So most of it is paid by the government. Agriculture credit flow in 2021-22, it was about 13% more than the target. It means overall loans जो हैं वो बड़े हैं agriculture में. Private investment भी ऊपर गया है. सारी चीजें ऊपर गई agriculture में. Farm mechanization helps increase productivity through timely and efficient use of other inputs and natural resources. Submission on agriculture mechanism, ये आप याद रखना. State governments are being assisted in training and demonstrating agricultural machinery and helping farmers produce various farm machinery. Now, custom hiring centers and high-tech hubs and farm machinery banks have been established. अब ये देखो, ये इतने custom hiring या इतने high-tech या इतने farm machinery, obviously no need of keeping them in your mind. बस इसको एक बार देख लेना, दोबारा भी मत देखना. ये कह रहा हूँ कि इतना ज़्यादा don't waste your time. Rather, you have to pick those things from where there can be questions. Got it? So, सर्वे को पढ़ने का एक तरीका है. पहले दो चैप्टर जो होते हैं वही मोड और टोन सेट कर देते हैं सर्वे का. उसके बाद मोस्टली तो फैक्ट्स हैं. अब ये है, इसमें अब क्या लॉजिक लगाओगे बोलो. तो है, इतने हुए हैं तो हुए हैं. Now, organic and natural farming. Organic farmers, India has 44.3 lakh organic farmers, the highest in the world. ये ध्यान में रखना. Highest number of organic farmers are in India. Sikkim became the first state in the world to become fully organic. I hope you are aware about that as well. Are you aware about Pradhan Mantri Paramparagat Krishi Sichai Yojana? So, Krishi Vikas Yojana. So, look here. You have Farmer Producers Organization under the Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, Mission Organic Value Chain Development for Northeastern Region. So, this is again for horticulture. Bharatiya प्राकृतिक कृषि पद्धति, ये ध्यान रखना, इट्स अ सब स्कीम ऑफ द कृषि विकास योजना, परंपरागत कृषि विकास योजना, इंक्लूडिंग जीरो बजट नेचुरल फार्मिंग. व्हाट इज दैट जीरो बजट नेचुरल फार्मिंग? There could be a question on this. Recently, zero budget natural farming was in news. You see, zero budget मतलब कुछ पैसा नहीं लगेगा उसमें. Natural farming means using the natural resources, like say for example cow dung or natural manure that you can obtain in the locality. Utilizing that, you are improving your production. That is zero budget farming. Do you get that? It means you are not putting any fertilizer, you're not putting any insecticide, weedicide, nothing. You are only using farmyard manure and things that you can collect in the neighborhood. Got it? And all these things are organic in nature without any kind of chemical inputs. That is zero budget farming. So ये भारतीय प्राकृतिक कृषि पद्धति, प्राकृतिक कृषि पद्धति, पद्धति means process. Do you understand? Krishi means agriculture, Prakritik means natural, Bharatiya obviously Indian. Do you understand that? Other important initiatives in agriculture, ये ध्यान रखना. PM Kisan 6,000 per year. Agricultural Infrastructure Fund, financing facility operational from the year 2020-21 to 2032-33 for the creation of post-harvest management infrastructure and community farm assets. It includes all kinds of assets which could be utilized for the maintenance of the produce and distribution and processing of the produce. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, अब इस पे क्या ध्यान में रखना है? It's the largest crop insurance scheme in the world in terms of enrollment, and it is the third largest in terms of premium received. Got it? With farmers paying only 1.5% and 2% of the total premium for the Rabi and Kharif season respectively, with central and state governments bearing most of the premium cost. अब देखो premium farmers ने कितना डाला है आज तक 25,186 crore और मिला कितना है claim में देखो 1.2 lakh crore. इतना मिल चुका है उनको इंश्योरेंस के फॉर्म में. And crop insurance is the way out rather than farm waivers, right? They are very bad. Mission for integrated development for horticulture, and especially you see the northeast is one region, the Himalayan belt, entire Himalayan belt from Himachal to the northeast. You see that area is apt for horticultural development, right? So a lot of focus is there now. The scheme to promote horticulture covering fruits, vegetables, root and tuber crops, spices, flowers, plantation crops, etc. was introduced in 2014-15. The interventions include introducing improved varieties and quality seeds, incentives for plantation crops, cluster development and post-harvest management. Then obviously there is the ENAM scheme, which is nothing but an online transparent competitive bidding system to ensure farmers get remunerative prices for their produce. इसमें APMC मंडीज जो हैं उसमें गवर्नमेंट पैसा देती है. Now climate smart farming, this is slowly gaining acceptance with farmers using clean energy sources like solar for irrigation. The farmers have been incentivized to transfer electricity generated through solar to the local grid. Now that can also augment farm incomes. आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, ड्रोन्स, ये सब कुछ यूज हो रहा है और 100 से ज्यादा, 1000 से ज्यादा एग्री टेक स्टार्टअप्स हैं जो हेल्प कर रहे हैं फार्मर्स को अभी टू डेवलप द टेक्नोलॉजी which is responsible for power generation. So use that in the farm, the extra you sell it in the open market. International Year of Millets. Now, what are millets, by the way? What are millets? Millets क्या होता है? What is not rice and wheat is millet? अच्छा, is ज्वार a millet? बाजरा a millet? Good. चलो ठीक है फिर. देखो, it's a collective term referring to a number of small seeded annual grasses that are cultivated as grain crops primarily on marginal lands in dry areas in temperate, subtropical and tropical regions. तो इसी से देखो 3 सेंटेंस बन सकता है क्वेश्चन के लिए. समझ में आया? Some of the common millets available in India are ragi, jowar, sama, bajra and fariga. The earliest evidence of these grains have been found in Indus Valley civilization. Obviously, कहाँ पे कोई साइट बता सकते हो जहां मिलेट मिला है? हाँ? Where you have found millets in Indus Valley? In so many areas it has been found. एक जगह तो मिला नहीं है, कई जगहों पे मिला है. कहाँ बोलो, गेस करो. ओके, आई विल गिव यू हिंट. प्रेजेंट डे हरियाणा. यस, रोपर में मिला है. और राखी गढ़ी. Now, it is grown in about 131 countries and is the traditional food for around 60 crore people in Asia and Africa. India is the largest producer of millet in the world. ये सारे लग रहे हैं एग्जाम के स्टेटमेंट्स. बिल्कुल. It accounts for 20% of global production, 80% of Asia's production. Global distribution: India, Nigeria, China are the largest producer of millets in the world, in that order, right? Accounting for more than 55% of the global production. For many years, India was a major producer of millets. However, in recent years, millet production has increased dramatically in Africa. Now, in India, देखो millet को अब एक बहुत popularity नहीं मिल रही है, especially in the high income groups. But then again, there is a renewed attention on nutrition. और आपने देखा होगा मल्टीग्रेन सीरियल, मल्टीग्रेन आटा और ये सब कुछ आ रहा है अब, ठीक है. मतलब वैसे बाजरे की रोटी नहीं खा रहे हैं लेकिन मल्टीग्रेन के नाम पे सब खा रहे हैं. Why are millets considered important nutri cereals? The Niti Aayog calls them nutri cereals. देखो, first they are climate resilient staple food crops, drought resistant है, require less water and can grow in poor soil conditions as well, even in lateritic soil. Rich in nutrients, millets are good source of fiber, protein, vitamins and minerals. Gluten free. So many people are averse to gluten. Gluten, by the way, is what? It's a kind of protein which binds, right? Adaptable, millets can be grown in a variety of soils and climates, making them a versatile crop option for farmers. Sustainable, millets are often grown using traditional farming methods, which are more sustainable and environmentally friendly than modern industrial practices. तो ये India's millet map. So just go through this कि कहाँ पे किस किस स्टेट में मिलेट ग्रो होता है. Just study this. Now, look here, allied sectors or those sectors which are dependent on agricultural produce. The livestock sector, it grew at compounded annual growth rate of 7.9% during 2014-15 to 2020-21 at constant prices. Constant prices means with respect to a base year. You understand that? Fisheries, the annual average growth rate of the fisheries sector has been about 7% since 2016-17 and has a share of about 6.7% in total agricultural gross value added. Dairy sector, it is employing more than 8 crore farmers directly and is the most prominent agrarian product. India ranks first in milk production in the world. It ranks third in egg production and eighth in meat production in the world. By the way, which country is the largest exporter of milk? We are the largest producers, but we are also the largest consumer. न्यूजीलैंड है. सोच कर देखो, बिकॉज कंजम्पशन बहुत ही कम है उनका, तो टोटल प्रोपोर्शन वाइज अगर उनका नेट एक्सपोर्ट्स देखोगे तो बहुत ऊपर है. ऑस्ट्रेलिया ऑल्सो वन ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट एक्सपोर्टर्स. कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी, अब ये देखना आप, सहकार से समृद्धि. आर यू अवेयर द कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स आर नोन एज सहकारिता बैंक्स? So, to realize the vision of Sakar Se Samriddhi, a renewed impetus was given to the growth of cooperative sector. Registered cooperatives, 8.5 lakh registered cooperatives in the country. And you see primary agricultural credit societies, PACs, ये भी बने हैं, वो cooperative societies हैं. Cooperative societies, okay, if suppose there is a question like this. Which of the following are advantages of cooperative farming? First option. It reduces risks of farming for the individual farmer. Second, it enhances capacity utilization. Third, it makes farming a sustainable operation. Cooperative farming. Yes. Yes, because it reduces risks. सोच कर देखो ना. और सस्टेनेबिलिटी कैसी होगी? इकोनॉमिक सस्टेनेबिलिटी यानी एनवायरमेंटल. लॉजिक लगाओ. जैसे सस्टेनेबल डाला बिल्कुल आप घबरा गए. सो लुक हियर, एग्रीकल्चर फाइनेंस, अराउंड 19% ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर फाइनेंस इज थ्रू कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटीज. और एग्रीकल्चर फाइनेंस वैसे भी पीएसएल का पार्ट है. मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कोऑपरेशन, अ फुल फ्लेज्ड मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कोऑपरेशन वाज एस्टैब्लिश्ड, provide greater focus to cooperative sector. Multi-state Cooperative Societies Act 2002 MSCS was enacted to facilitate the democratic functioning and autonomous working of multi-state cooperative society. Can you give an example of one of the cooperatives which has flourished a lot? Amul. There are 1528 registered societies under the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act. Government has also decided to introduce MSCS Amendment Bill 2022. The bill seeks to amend the MSCS Act 2002 to bring it in line with Part 9B of the Constitution. It means what? The part dealing with cooperative societies. To form cooperative society, is that a fundamental right? Yes, that's a fundamental. Under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause C. It aims to strengthen the cooperative movement in the country. Food processing sector. Optimum development of food processing sector will contribute significantly, tackling several developmental concerns such as disguised rural employment. अब देखो ऐसा ही question आ सकता है. Food processing will help in reducing disguised rural employment in agriculture, rural poverty, improve food security, reduce food inflation, improve nutrition, prevention of wastage of food. ऐसे कुछ options आ सकते हैं ना? So just keep that in mind. During the last 5 years, ending financial year 21, the food processing industry sector has been growing at an average annual rate of around 8.3%. मतलब agriculture का जो overall growth है उससे food processing का growth ज़्यादा है. And that is mainly because of the entrepreneurship that is going up in the country. As per the largest annual survey of industries, 12.2% of persons in registered manufacturing sector were employed in the food processing sector. The value of agri products, including processed food exports, was about 10.9% of India's total exports during 2021-22. Now, what you have to keep in mind here is that food processing sector gives employment to also semi-skilled and unskilled people. So, it's an employment generator, this food processing sector. Challenges क्या है food processing के लिए? Lack of adequate and efficient cold chain infrastructure. And worldwide, we have stringent guidelines for importing food and agricultural products, obviously to save their own domestic farming industry. Logistical barriers relating to connectivity, like say for example, no roads or no proper laws that channelize trade between countries across sea or water or air. Okay. Food security. The food management program in India comprises procurement of food grains from farmers at remunerative prices, distribution of food grains to consumers, and maintenance of food buffer stock. The food subsidy bill was higher during 2020-21. आपको पता है क्यों हुआ ये higher? प्रधानमंत्री गरीब कल्याण योजना, ठीक है, उसकी वजह से ऊपर चला गया. National Food Security Act 2013 cover about 80% of India's population. During 2022-23, the government of India allocated 970.1 lakh tons of food grains to states, union territories under NFSA and other welfare schemes. One nation, one ration card scheme system enables intra-state and interstate portability of ration cards. Presently, the national interstate portability is enabled in all 36 states, 28 states and 8 union territories, covering 100% of the total NFSA population. Matlab, it's a big achievement of the government. One nation, one ration card. That's it. That is it. These two chapters are done. Again, आप देखोगे कि chapter में आपको वही मिलेगा, mostly data, data and data. So you have to just walk through them. Don't take the pressure to by heart everything. Just read them once, that would be enough. अब देखो, every day I am giving you like how many pages? 15-16 pages on an average. But if you take the survey, it's almost like 300-350 pages. तो अगर हम इतना भी करते हैं with 6 classes with 70-80 pages, that's it. और अगर आप उसको print कर लोगे तो 40 pages हो जाएंगे, 35-40 pages, that would be enough. और उसमें भी मैं आपको बहुत सारी चीजें बता रहा हूँ कि जो आपको नहीं याद रखनी है, डेटा वेटा याद रखना ही नहीं है. ये क्यों दिया है? जिससे कि आपके दिमाग में एक चीजें बन जाए. जैसे एग्रीकल्चर में ग्रोथ हुआ है, हाँ हुआ है. फूड प्रोसेसिंग सेक्टर में उससे भी ज्यादा ग्रोथ हुआ है. कितना हुआ है, दैट इज नॉट एट ऑल अ कॉज ऑफ कंसर्न. गॉट इट? थैंक यू वेरी मच. हाँ बोलो. We will do that, dear, because that's coming in the next chapter. Are you reading this, sir? Good. Thank you.